Hello, OT friends, and welcome to the Uncommon OT series. I'm Patricia Modis, and I'm your host, a Filipino-American, native New Yorker, currently based in Los Angeles, bulldog mama, and an uncommon occupational therapist myself for the past 22 years. On this podcast, you will hear me proudly feature the unique careers of occupational therapy practitioners working in non-traditional and role-emerging practice areas, settings where OT is uncommon. I invite you to receive a dose of OT inspiration, to learn, to think outside of the box, and to be energized and motivated to follow in these unconventional paths. Happy listening. Before we begin this episode, I want to extend a special thanks to Picmonic, our sponsor. If you are an OT or OTA student looking for an excellent learning resource and study aid, Picmonic might be for you. Whether you're studying for your classes or getting ready for the NBCOT exam, it is a visual mnemonic learning tool that has been research proven to increase retention and help students ace their exams. It uses audio-visual learning and intelligence-based repetition algorithms to help with long-term retention while studying. If you're interested in trying it for yourself, sign up today using the link in the show notes or using the code TRANSITIONSOT to score a discount of 20% off your Picmonic membership. Welcome back, OT friends. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest of honors. I would like to introduce you to co-authors of a book called Occupational Identity. Today, we are joined by Dr. Alaa Abou-Arab and Dr. Herrera. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and for telling us about your work and your journey and what has led you to it so far. So to get us started, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and maybe some of your favorite occupations.
My name is Alaa Abou-Arab. I am currently an acute care therapist living in Los Angeles, California, husband and a father of an almost 5-year-old boy. I come from two Lebanese immigrants, born and raised in Ohio. I'm an acute care therapist, but I'm also a lifelong activist and advocate. And recently published author, so that's kind of cool. And I'm happy to be here. I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud to be on this podcast and to share this space with Erica. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alaa. Yes. I'm Dr. Erica Herrera, and I am occupational therapist, of course. I am also a certified hand therapist, and I do also love teaching at the university. I work in hand therapy. That's my setting. I am originally from the Bay Area in California. Of course, all of us from the Bay Area, mostly, we never say what city. We just say the Bay Area. Don't ask me. But I'm from the Bay Area originally, but I do live here in Southern California, Loma Linda. I am a wife and mother of a 6-year-old who just graduated from kindergarten a couple days ago. So that's really exciting. Some of occupations that I like to do, I am very physical, outdoorsy person. Anything with an ing at the end, I'm probably doing. I love to hike. I've done Muay Thai for going on, 2 decades, I guess. I love running and singing and all of those different things. And like Alaa, I'm also now a published author along with him. So this is really exciting. And I'm sure you'll learn more about me. Oh, and I am first gen. My mother is originally from Nigeria, Africa, and my father was raised here in the United States. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about yourselves, you guys. Always kind of the fun part of the episode. And I, look at you both just kind of talking about your accomplishments and where you're, sort of where you are currently and just beaming with lovely smiles.
Yeah.
So Big congrats on the book and the publication.
Thank you.
We were joking earlier how we're all waiting for our copies or to get our physical hands on the copies. And hopefully by the time this episode releases, mine will be here. But yes, again, big congrats. And this is the main reason why I invited you to come on the podcast, is to talk about your work and sort of what motivated you to do this. So this might be a great way for us to kind of delve into that.
Yeah, I'm sure Allah will have amazing things to add to this, but I'm going to take you back a few years ago when this started. Allah and I actually were on a committee together. We were on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for OTAC here in California. And we ended up being on the same subcommittee of that. And during that time, our subcommittee was involved with trying to figure out different ways that we can promote both diversity and then equity and inclusion, specifically within like schools and as well as practice. That was our subcommittee. It was specifically with the schools and the students and with the clinicians. How can we promote that in the everyday? And so we would have all these conversations at our meetings and tell different stories about things that were happening in our own lives, as well as trying to figure out how we can devise an easy way that practitioners can incorporate this into their daily life. And I think him and I were starting to have these side conversations and feeling kind of like through the things that we were learning on that committee, we were also feeling some holes. Your brain starts going and you're like, man, there should be this, or we should be doing more of that. And so we were having all these conversations, and then time passed, right? We were in this committee, and then I think I did it for another year or so. And then Allah was doing some other project. And then we connected again via phone call, and Allah can tell this part of the story better than I can, but he was telling me on the phone call, he's like, there was something that you said, myself, he said, Erica, there's something that you said in one of our meetings that gave me this idea. And he told me the idea, and he was like, I don't know how I wanted to get this all started, but I know that there's more to it and we need to get this written down. And then from there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it too. And so like, it was kind of like this like sandbox 5-year-old conversation. Yeah, I want to join. That's fun. And so, he's like, okay. So I remember starting writing these notes on a little yellow piece of paper, and yeah, we need to get stories out there. Like, it needs to be people's stories, and really, what are the issues? Like, what I want to know about all OT, different things that are going on in the OT's life, but not just, and then we're, having these conversations. Well, not just their life, not just their practice, but them. How far back do we need to go? And so we're like, well, we need to learn about their family too. And well, what about where they came from? And well, what about where they are in the States? Or like, it just get deeper and deeper because, when you're talking about these things, you can't stop at one piece of the pie. Like, you have to go deeper to really figure out why someone thinks the way they do, why they act the way they do, why they practice the way they do, why they interact with different people the way they do, right? And so that's how we kept diving deeper into this. And then from there, that's where the concept of the book, and that's where the concept of, no, it needs to be individual OTs, and it needs to, we need to have different experiences and stories. And I think this will really help that learning curve for students, because when you get out and you're like, okay, I'm going to use this sock aid, and that's great. But like, does that person from that culture want you touching them because you're a male? And you don't know, you don't learn that stuff in school, And so in our book, like we kind of try to dive deeper into all these other spaces so you can get a better, well-rounded look at what exactly does our practice look like, or how did you feel as the OT when you had a something happen, in a certain situation, and how did that affect you? Because you still have to see 10 other people that day, so we go into that in the book, and it's nice because it evolves from the individual stories from people.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I love that.
Also, yeah, I love that you found each other. Really,
we do too.
Ideas off of, like it sounds like, yeah, it sounds like it's a great partnership.
It has been, yeah, it has been, and it's really happened organically. Uh, it was like, sort of trusting a stranger with a lot of intellectual like property, right? It was like
Yeah.
I had this dope idea, and I don't even really know this person like that, but I really felt community with her, even within the
Hmm.
subcommittee, and it was those experiences and those conversations we had where it goes back to what I was saying earlier about what we look at as non-traditional, which is, not the way things have been done, right?
Yes.
And being a profession that is dominated by white Christian males, white Christian females, right? It's like we're used to doing things a certain way. We're used to certain people giving us permission to do those things, right?
And where to do those things,
Where to
right?
do those things and how to do those things.
Hmm.
And if we don't respond to our trauma a certain way, then we're judged as being too violent or we're too passive, or depending on the group that you're from, you're going to be pinpointed a certain way of how we respond. And so, I'm just talking to Erica, like, why don't we just get rid of the gatekeeper, right? We are our own gatekeepers. Like, we will tell our stories. And that's what I was talking about earlier about how I'm seeing a community of people starting to come together and share their stories. We're seeing this live stream, right, of all the horror going on around the world, right? And because those of us that have always been in control of the information are having a hard time controlling all the information, people are telling their own stories. Like, and there's power in that, right? And just do our own thing. We don't need anyone to tell us that what we're experiencing in our lives, that what we're learning, that what we're seeing, is or isn't statistically significant or isn't peer reviewed, right? Like we're seeing this stuff happen. We've lived these things, all of us have experiences. Our parents, their parents, and their parents all had experiences that led to us to where we are right now, whether it be a trauma experience, a joyful experience, a story of resilience, a story of like anti-oppression, or a story of just like growing up and, having a lot of good things, not feeling marginalized. And sometimes the first time you felt it is with someone that looks exactly like you, right? Like
Mm.
seeing these differences within these minoritized groups, right? And that's a big theme of it. And you'll see a lot of that in the book is minorities are not a monolith, right? Not all Filipinos are the same thing, right? Like
Hmm.
all Black people are the same. Not all
Mhm.
Arabs are the same, right? We all have differences within each other, and those of us that aren't from these groups want to simplify these groups to make it easier for themselves, and it becomes uncomfortable if we don't if we don't fit the way they see us, right? Like you're seeing Allah, you automatically are thinking this dude's name is God, or like where's his home
Hmm.
from? Like what's this guy's story? And then I tell you that A, I don't really practice Islam, that B, I'm not really religious at all, that C, I speak, English more than Arabic, yada yada yada. All these things that you don't think that surprise you. That I was born
Yeah.
and raised in like Midwestern Ohio, where like I, played football and then wrestled and did all the things. And I even say this in the book because, full disclosure, Erica and I's stories are both in this book as well. And so you'll
Okay.
hear a lot more of our stories and examples of our stories and our journeys in this book. But like I mentioned in the book, like I used to live my life like a white boy. Like I would just walk around my hometown, like no one bothered me, right? I didn't feel oppressed
Hmm.
growing up. And then, and I was that, like sort of like kind of like a dork, where like I thought I was like invincible, right? um I felt privilege and I walked around with privilege, and then 9/11 happened my freshman year in college, and I was like, wait a minute, yeah, I definitely don't have all those privileges, but you know what I mean, like they all went away really fast, you know
Ah.
and I had to sort of unlearn a lot of things, and this happened early. I was 18, right? This happened early on. And so I started seeing the similarities in oppression. I started, seeing it and meeting people and exposing myself to more things. And, you know, that's why this story is so important, is that like you want to debunk a lot of the nonsense that we've been told and we've been fed our whole lives. And you don't
Mhm.
want to debunk that by, you know, taking a class on a certain culture. You want to debunk that by
Hmm.
listening to people from these cultures and listen to their stories and hearing firsthand what it's like to be, a first generation, you know, um, immigrant with parents who weren't born here and walking out of your house speaking one language and walking into school speaking another language, and then worried about whether or not your food's going to smell at lunchtime because you brought leftovers, or you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
and seeing that in Ohio and then seeing that in Philadelphia, and like you mentioned earlier, Patricia, about being the only one of you in your class, like
Hmm.
that's like thing in our everyone in our book has pretty much been that person. Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, and it's really, it means a lot because we're going to have students read this book who are going to be the only ones of their culture or their ethnicity or their race in their classrooms. And then you know what? If this book makes them feel less alone, then we did our job.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, and on top of all that, just to kind of all that to say is this book is literally scratching the surface. Like we're barely
Yeah.
even getting started.
Mhm.
There's so many stories that Eric and I were like, oh man, I wish that was in there. Oh, I wish that was in there.
Yeah.
And we could only fit 45, 50,000 words, you know what I mean, a certain way. And so there was participants that backed out. There was some that we didn't, publish, you know what I mean? Like, and so, and now Eric and I were talking with volume 2 ideas and all these different people we want to interview, or what this is going to be about. It's like we're barely scratching the surface of storytelling as a form of anti-oppression. And it's awesome. I'm like so proud and
Yeah. That's great.
pretty cool.
I'm super proud too. Just learning all of this in the last 10 minutes has just, made just added so much more meaning to this book, right? I know you're talking about it to educate, to inform.
Mhm.
I don't know why I didn't think that it was really going to be rooted in your own origin stories, right? And I love that you've woven that in.
Mhm.
That was your motivation and inspiration to do this work, right? And I think you're going to be touching. This is just the beginning, like you said. This is just the beginning. You're going to be impacting future practitioners' perspectives,
Mhm.
and that's so important. Like we especially I mean, I don't know how diverse your clientele are when you go to work, but mine are, you can't really give me a typical patient, we work with such a diverse group of individuals that there needs to be diversity within the providing, within the
Yes.
providers too. And for so many different levels. But anyway, I'm super excited to delve more into the book. Do you think
Yeah.
this is a good time for that now?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
You take it away.
Yeah. So for me, I mentioned this earlier, and in 2025, a COTE, or the Accreditation Council for OT Education, is updating their standards, and it's going to include requirements, a lot more requirements involving DEI. I'm not going to sit here and go through that one by one with you because I don't know them all, but um, I say that to say is that the profession in and of itself is often is a lot of that, a lot of what they've done has been short and not enough, of course, but we're moving in the right direction. So now universities are going to be required to be talking about this stuff a lot more than they have been before, and they have to document how they're talking about it, how they're teaching it. They're going to have to supply artifacts and the narratives about what exactly they're doing to address DEI issues within OT. And what better way to do that than, like I said, to hear stories of practitioners, minoritized practitioners in OT, and their journeys, right? It's 14 chapters, so there's 14 different journeys. And these are all minoritized occupational therapists that work and or have been trained in the United States. And it's amazing. I've read, Erica hasn't, I don't think, but I've read through the book in its totality, on the PDF version a couple of times now, and just going through these stories, even rereading them after we've rewritten them numerous times, right? Before submission. Every single time I learned something new, even though I already knew about it.
Mhm.
I found myself the second time around going through the book and skipping chapters and just opening it up randomly and just reading a chapter. Because there's a method to our madness of how we sequenced our chapters. But I realized because every story is that person's story and doesn't necessarily have to do with the chapter before or the chapter after. You could literally open the book up at any chapter and read a chapter and come away with questions about what you thought you knew about, and what you think, what you know now, what you are questioning to learn about more of. Well, and so, and every chapter will have discussion questions as well. And so, this book is meant for students, but we're all students, right? We all
Mhm.
learning and unlearning. And so everyone should read these chapters and these stories and seek out more stories and share their own stories. And
Yes.
that's what this is about. And so, Erica, yeah, it's really awesome. And to start to get the feedback, not for the per se the content, but just the idea of like that people are looking for these stories to read. People, thanking us for letting them share their stories. It was amazing,
Mhm.
Mhm.
doing these interviews and the amount of gratitude provided from the people that were sharing their story that they were actually able to share in a safe place. Um, and which maybe they hadn't felt before in their careers, was a lot, right? We're the ones being very grateful, like to even share their stories with us, right? Because they're sharing vulnerabilities and traumas and things that maybe they don't want to share. Um, that their gratitude towards us was really awesome. I think Erica can attest to that.
Yes. Yes. That was amazing. And these are kind of connected, so I promise I won't go off too much on a tangent. But one of the things, which I know Allah does a lot of, is really trauma focused. I'm trauma focused also in my own practice. And one of the, I may not say this verbatim, but one of the definitions that I love about trauma is it's not the incident or the issue that happened of the trauma that makes it trauma, but it is not being seen. That issue or whatever happened is still stuck inside of you because for some reason someone did not see it. You have not been able to process it. And so it's developing itself in different ways, maybe weight gain, maybe an autoimmune disease that's popping up. There's all these other ways that your body's like, yo, I'm hurting, but you don't want to deal with me. So now we're doing substance abuse, right? Or now
Mhm.
we're doing something else because you're not seen. You haven't been able to express or talk, maybe you don't want to talk about it, whatever the case is, right? And so just thinking about our own clients or patient population, whatever setting that you're in, that should be a number one. We should all be trying to see our patients, see our clients, right? Whatever you're trying to rehab or work on, we need to see them. We need to try to figure out just, on the basic core level. Maybe they don't have a trauma. Maybe they're like, no, I really fell and that's it. I broke my finger and everything else is fine, and that's great. But if not, if there's something brewing in there, we need to be able to ask the questions or allow them the space to speak on or to divulge or whatever it is that they want to. And that's so heavily the theme of our book is when we're interviewing these people, whether we agree, quote unquote, agree or not agree with their story, it is their story. And allowing
Mhm.
them to share
Right.
whatever they want to say is healing.
That's right.
That is the healing part. It's not the fact that me personally, I'm, like I said, my background is I'm Nigerian American. My mother is from Nigeria. I grew up here in the United States. Mostly I'm the oldest of two other siblings. I grew up Christian. I still practice my Christianity. I'm very spiritual. That's my background, right? But if I have somebody across from me that's an atheist, that doesn't believe in anything, that they feel the world is terrible, and things just happen to you and that's it, there's no afterworld, whatever, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna listen, because it's not about me, it's about them,
Mhm.
right? When I'm hearing something, if it's a black white issue, right? Oh, I believe black people are this way, or I believe all white people are this, or whatever. Maybe the fact that you're expressing some of these things to me, wow, what's going on with me? Am I getting mad? Am I getting upset? Like, it's good to check in with yourself and figure out why am I feeling this, right?
Mhm.
What's going on inside of me? But I'm still going to listen to this person, because for what we found in our book, if you go back far enough, there is a reason why someone is feeling or saying or expressing what they're feeling, saying, and expressing, right?
Yeah.
And we need to give each other enough time to allow a space for someone to speak, regardless of how much that makes you want to,
Yes.
across the table, or I can't believe you just said that, or whatever the case is. Allow someone to speak. Just allow, and you really try to listen and try to dive into, I wonder, what is that, or what does that mean? Or when you say that, do you, why do you say that? Do you realize that that's hurtful, or do you realize that that's not hurtful? Or because if you go deep enough, you'll figure out maybe you both have a similarity of a trauma, but for some reason in your journey, you've expressed it this way so that you can survive in your environment. And I've
Mm-hmm.
expressed it this way so I can survive in my environment.
Yeah.
So our outcomes are fighting each other, but our foundation is the same. And
Yeah.
so that's what we find a lot in the book. You'll find each chapter is a different person, right? And so you'll find a different story. Maybe they're in a different practice setting, or maybe they're an OT that's been working 40 years and you're an OT that's been working 2 years, right? But you keep reading the story and you're it's as if you're having a conversation with them as they're going from
Mm-hmm.
their background, their families, where they are, and maybe they're the oldest child or they're the middle child, or and then they get down to wherever practice area that they're in, and some issues that they've had, or something that stood out that they really just, oh, that interaction really bothered me with that patient, or and then I've found myself treating other patients this way because of that one interaction. And they, in our chapters, people talk about so many different things, but as you're giving yourself through a book, because you have to sit there and read it, you're giving yourself the time to dissect what someone is saying and then to reflect at the same time, as opposed to what we do normally in society. Someone's talking to you, you're hearing it. Once you hear that trigger word, you've negated everything else that's coming after, and you're ready to respond to that,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not even listening anymore to whatever else the issues may have been. You're just ready to respond. And so I think what we love about having that we sat down and wrote this book is like, no, now we get to go back to these chapters, or we get to kind of like, oh, I wonder if that is because of how you were you said it, the person said in a different paragraph of a situation that happened when they were younger and how that shaped them, and now that's coming up later on as you see them in school, or feeling
Yeah.
like they're the only one, or feeling like it's always me that has to strive and blah 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 because of whatever you've learned from your parents, or the
Yes.
pressures that were put upon you earlier in life. But you get to sit and kind of dissect and reflect on some of the things that someone is saying. It really does change you a little bit, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it makes you connect. That word Alaa was talking about earlier, that community, that belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Realize how much connection there is off of something that you thought was such a difference, but it
Yes.
really is not a difference. It's
Yeah.
actually, in the chapters, you'll find like, wow, this person is, Asian American, transgendered, or whatever. And then this person is like, grew up with African parents and something, but you're realizing those chapters are actually very similar. They're talking
Yeah.
about the same trauma. It's just in a totally different lens.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but that's kind of some of the big picture things that you'll get out of the book too.
Well, I love that it can sort of speak to so many. When you were originally conceptualizing the book, did you have an audience in mind? Like, were you thinking that this is for the marginalized group, like they're going to connect with the content, or was it meant to educate the non-marginalized group? Was there any kind of intention, meaning in either of those directions?
Yeah, definitely it was intended always for students.
for
To
students?
Yeah, that was always not necessarily to like educate per se, right? And we're not trying to, reading this book, is it going to make you culturally aware of every culture's custom, right? That's not the intention, right? It's to see the person, right? And see the differences within these communities, right? Stop painting us with a wide brush, right? As we learn about occupation, right? We're moving away from cultural competence because we're realizing that cultural competence is not an appropriate form to teach cultural awareness, right? You can't be an expert or competent at a particular culture, right?
Yeah.
Because not everybody in that culture is going to be doing things the same way, right? We've realized that that's not effective way of teaching about culture. We're moving towards cultural humility, right? Is to always sort of be reflecting consistently. It's a lifelong journey of learning and unlearning, right? To be humble, right? As you learn about other cultures and decentering yourself. And so what do I mean by decentering yourself? Oftentimes when we hear other people speak about their experiences, right? We think about ourselves. And like Erica said, we're responding to that person's experience without just sitting in it, right? Listen, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, even if it was somebody from your group that committed these traumas, right? Sit with it. And this book allows you to sit with it, like Erica said.
Yeah.
And so it's for the minoritized, it's for the oppressed. I will say that first and foremost. And I say that because I'm not a one to give a voice for the voiceless, right? I don't like that comment, but I always say I just rather give them the microphone, like,
Mm,
just pass the mic as opposed to speaking for them. And so this
yes.
book is a sort of a pen to paper way of passing the mic to these individuals because they're amazing people and their story
Hmm.
heard. And there's a lot of amazing people whose stories have not been heard going back centuries, right? We can't and so yeah, to educate by storytelling and to empower by passing the microphone. For me, those are the things that really moved me in this direction. Um, and so yeah, that's why we're here now. And like I mentioned, you're not gonna read a story about a particular, let's say you're not going to read Erica's story, for example, and be an expert on first generation Nigerian American, you know, um,
Yeah.
OTs, right? This gives you, it
Yeah.
scratches the surface to, you know what, you don't know everything, and listen to people's stories and don't assume that what you know is true. Because we're all walking and living and seeing different things. I have a twin brother, same DNA. We have a lot of differences. You know what I mean? And people growing up, even till now, there's a consistent comparison, even though we're not competing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like me
Mhm.
and him are best friends. We're not trying to do one over the other or try to present ourselves a certain way. But whether we like it or not, people are comparing us. When I'm not with him and somebody that we know, together, they're asking about him, right? And what's he up to? What's he going on? And vice
Mhm.
versa. And I have two other brothers. No one ever asked me about them. You know what I mean? So it's like, just like people want to compare, people want to put in they want to center themselves, right?
Mhm.
And I say
Yeah.
that as a not as an important example, but I want to kind of show you a metaphor of what I'm thinking. Um, it's not about you, it's about them. And even as authors of these chapters, and Eric and I, talked about this a lot. I found myself very humble in letting the person who's telling their story and writing about them being about their story. For those who know me, I'm ready to like fight the power whenever I can, And so someone will share an experience in this book that I'm like, that made me viscerally angry, right? I was like, when's the next protest? What can I do? What can I do for this person? But I had to realize, yo, man, they're not as angry as you are. So like, you need to decenter yourself. It's not
It's not
about you.
about you.
Yeah, it's not. And so even as authors, it was therapeutic in sort of learning, um, sort of practicing what we preach in a really tangible way. which I think made this book that much more awesome. That experience, and Erica can attest. I mean, that journey and the experience.
Yes.
Me and her met every Tuesday for like 2 years.
Like 2.5 years. It's
during a pandemic with families upstairs, with families
Yeah.
and so we did this, and it was our own journey writing about other people's journeys. I think could probably be a book by itself.
No, really. That was
A behind the scenes book of
yes.
what happened.
Yeah, peeling back the curtains. Yeah.
But there's so many different levels here, it's designed for students, for them to, understand more, what it's like to be in another person's perspective and really sitting with someone, right? That's a great lesson, I think, for students to know the value of that, of being really present and just, again, it's about that other person. So all these sort of side lessons and the healing, right? The healing for the interviewees, and sounds like some healing on your part too, for
Yes.
along the way, right? So there's so many benefits and probably unexpected ones, right? That sort of crept up in there. And I think that just shows, yeah, again, why it was really important to have this to have this publication out there, and the importance of your message and how it transcends on so many different levels. You talked a little bit, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. You mentioned, you know, spending 2 years together, that being the process. So you've told us, or you shared with us how you met, sort of what motivated you both to come together and to, begin writing this book. Now we know that it took 2 years of weekly meetings and,
Yes.
weekly collaborations and conversations. And then now here you are, published and all, just waiting for the actual copy to arrive in the mail.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you to fill in the gaps a little bit for our listeners, right? For those who may want to use your medium as a way to promote their mission, right? Or as a way to share their word. So how, I know you're both doing, sort of more traditional OT work on the side, but what was it, or how did you, what does it take to publish a book? What are some of the, and I know it's probably going to take more than one episode, but if you can give us a nice little, yeah, just a nice little tidbit about what did it take, who did you have to contact, was that a pain in the butt, and maybe advice you might have for those who want to do something similar.
Ooh.
Yeah. Alaa, did you want to
No,
start?
go ahead. By all
Oh,
means.
okay. And please, Alaa, fill in as much, please.
Mhm.
But I would say if I'm recalling correctly, like the start of everything was not even realizing that you did start.
Yeah.
Like really, because sometimes when you have a conversation with somebody and you're like, how should we get this started? It's like you just started.
Yeah.
You talking about it, you having the idea in your mind, like that is a start. Like some people think like, okay, I need to have 5 chapters written and then I can start. No, you started by having a conversation. You started by bringing that idea out of your brain and putting it on paper, like putting it as a vision. I think this needs to be a book, this needs to be okay, that is your start. So that is how we started. We had a conversation, literally jotting down notes I think I still have the notebook, and it's filled with other stuff, that notebook, like my grocery list, my all kinds of other stuff is in that notebook. But somewhere in there, it's also like, okay, I need to start looking up people that would be good for this book. So we gave each other tasks, right? Because we had an idea. How do we want to do this? Because how we were originally talking about the concept, it was so big. It's like, we're going to change the world. Like, it's so, how you do when you're doing a research study and they tell you, okay, and especially those of us who are in our doctorate programs, you're like, okay, we need to bring this down to just a pico, like just
With Pico.
me. And me personally, you know, I'm like, I'm gonna use this intervention to change the world. It's like, okay, we need to narrow this down. And so that's kind of where we started. We started like our Google Doc, our one Google Doc, and we're jotting down ideas. You know, how about the title should be this? The title should be that. Well, is that really what we're trying to say? You know, so you're going from there. What is it? What's the purpose? What are you trying to convey in your writing? Right. So that's the next step. You're getting all these ideas. Now, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to convey to the masses? And then who are we talking to?
Yes.
You know, who are you trying to sell? And it could be, if it's everybody, great. That could be everybody. But what part of everybody are you trying to reach? You know, is this emotional? Is this, you know, action piece? What is it that you're trying to, or who are you trying to reach? So that was our next piece. And then from there, since we knew that we were doing more of this like cultural work, humility, stories, but also really heavily rooted in occupational therapy practice, now we're trying to see, okay, and we want this to be as diverse as possible. We don't want to get all of everybody in our chapter comes from Folsom, California, you know, like we want it to be as you know, if we have someone who's maybe Black American or, you know, African American or whatever terms we're looking at, like we want to try and get, if we have 3 or 4 people, now we're like, okay, we need to make sure that these 3 or 4 people are coming from totally different. Maybe we have someone from the South. Maybe we have someone from the Northeast, you know, maybe we have someone from because those lenses are going to be very different, even though they may be the same race, right?
Yes.
The culture is going to be completely different. So we want to make sure that we're representing as much of differences as possible, right? So that was our next thing. Okay, how do we get the word going? How do we, you know, kind of ask people to be in the book? So now we're trying to formulate kind of that first proposal of, okay, let's jot up kind of a proposal that we'll send out to people if they want to be in our book, like what is our goal? What are we looking to do? And if they want to be a part of it. So then that was kind of like our next piece. So then, you know, now you're rolling, right? Now you have documents. Now you're trying to set up people and interviews and all these different things. And then long story short, then you start to get to the part of, okay, do we want to self-do this? Like, because now with social media, there's ways that you can self-publish. There's ways that so that was a really viable option. We're like, maybe we should just do this ourselves, you know? And then we're thinking, oh, well, maybe we should go through the route of looking at publishing companies and all of that. And I will tell you a little bit more about that part. But I remember us even writing up a proposal for ourselves and PowerPoints and kind of, this is what we're trying to do. And we would meet. I mean, we had so many meetings and we would meet about, okay, how do we want to kind of sell our idea? And then, you know, we did one, and then we kind of, it was a warm, I would say a warm welcome to what we wanted to do. But that particular entity kind of shot us down a little bit. So then we got our first rejection. And then, so now we're processing that. Why did they not want it? Why, you know, and they told us it just is not what we're looking for. This is not the type of thing that we want to put out, but maybe you guys can do it as a workshop. That would be a nice workshop for you. And so we're like, that's nice, but this is a book. Like, this is not you know, we really believed in what we were doing. And so we're like, okay, well, let's keep trying. Before we do the self thing, let's keep looking around at there, you know, I'm sure there's some other publishing company or something that would want to hear like what we have to say. So that's another piece of the puzzle. Like, once you want to put something out there and then maybe a certain entity does not want to hear, or it's just not in their repertoire at this point. Like they're not looking for that. That doesn't mean that you are either not right in your endeavor or, oh, this is not the right time for me. No, maybe it is, but you just need to keep looking around to find that fit, you know, if you are going that route of doing a publishing company. There's many of them out there. So don't just go with your first one and figure that's the one I wanted to go with and they don't think it's a good idea. So this is not book worthy and I'm not going to do it anymore. No, keep going, keep going. And so that's when we came across our next venue of the publishing company that ended up publishing our book. And then, of course, in between there, we had some proposals with, of course, as you, if you didn't see on the book, the wonderful COTAD is also on it as well. And they've been absolutely amazing. But even that, just proposing to them, you know, so when you're trying to get other people on board with your idea or your vision, really just trying to showcase, again, going back, you're always going back to why am I doing this? What is the importance of this material that I want to put out? Really, you always go back to that original foundation. Even though you have, like, you've done interviews or chapters, or, you know, we're writing now and we're doing a lot of different things with the book, but you constantly keep going back to, what is the why? Why are we putting it? Why is this important? You know, so for those of you who are trying to maybe write a book someday, or you have something that you're like, I really want to, this is a good idea, I want to do this in whatever kind of area that you're looking into doing, make sure you are solidifying your why and your reason and how this is going to impact the area that you're trying to impact. Because if you don't have that passion behind it, and if you don't fully have that together, it's going to be really hard, because that's the question that comes to you constantly with whoever you're proposing to, whether it's publishing, whether it's somebody that's trying to get on board with you. If you're trying to do it with another entity, they're going to say, well, what is the impact of this? Why is this important? You know, so that is, I think that would be the biggest thing. But I'll let you kind of take it from here. I'm sure there's things
I think you did a great job in describing that this is definitely like a process, you know, and like there's learning involved in doing something new or different, or, you know, go back to non-traditional, right? And yeah, it was, you know, and I'll be remiss to not emphasize this, but there's a lot of unpaid time.
Thank you.
Yes, because people think that we just, like, oftentimes those of us that are in the DEIJ circles, right, or, you know, anti-oppression circles, oftentimes people look at us as like robots, you know, and that we're not necessarily living other lives or responsibilities outside of like our anti-oppression work. When no, actually, we have a homes to take care of, and jobs and bills to pay, and like these things are time consuming, and our time is very valuable. And things like this, like writing a book, the proudest, sort of most validating thing I've done as an occupational therapist to this moment. But it was incredibly time consuming and unpaid, and a lot of stress, you know? And you know, Eric and I, our work habits are not the same, but because of that, we balanced it out and got things done in a way that was pretty awesome. And instead, you know, it was like ideas to paper, and then paper to an email, and then email to this person and that person. Next thing you know, we have consent forms that we're doing it, and we're interviewing people, and then we're writing chapters. And then it was like proposing the books to certain people, and then getting a rejection. And, you know, well, the one thing I want to emphasize that, and Erica mentioned it a little bit, was, and this is how I started my thought, right? It was like I had this idea, but I reached out to Erica about it, and then we didn't stop there, right? Like, we said, how do we get this thing into as many people's hands as possible, right? Which is where COTAD came in, right? Because the work they've already done over the past 10 years in creating that outreach provided us with a way to, again, build bridges with others who share the same passion who share the passion for storytelling, right? And build a community for this book. And so COTAD became incredibly involved, and, you know, we decided to split all revenue within 3 ways, right? So they're getting some, I'm getting some, and Erica's getting some because of the community. Yeah. So COTAD was involved with the editing process, and they played a really intricate role with the editing. And so a quick synopsis of how this went: Erica and I would conduct an interview, either her or I, and then we would write a chapter about that person. And then Erica and I would come together, and we would edit the chapter, and then we would send it to the participant. They would look at it, and they would give us feedback, and then we would, go from there. And then after the participant looked at the chapter, COTED and everybody else involved, we had a team, we had a team full of editors. This thing's a lot of work to reread and rewrite and reread and rewrite. So we had, hundreds of Google Docs and folders, and and we met with COTED once a month, and we went through every chapter together, and sent it in for final submission, right? So like all that just to get the book sent in. We set our final submission about a year ago. So just to kind of give you context about how long these things take, from the idea to being in print.
Wow.
And we sent in our final draft sometime last June, so almost a year
like
ago.
June 30.
And then they would get back to us. Yeah, they would get back to us. We would fix this, fix that, cite this, cite that. Then we work on the book design cover, and they would send us back, and we'd get feedback, and we go back, and then we sent our final draft. Like our last PDF version was like in January, and so that was about 5 months ago. So yeah, the journey is long. And like I mentioned, this is like literally the proudest journey I've done as an OT professional. And to be able to do something that's sort of not been done in this way, it's pretty awesome. So if you have an idea, like Erica said, you just started already. And so find community, find belonging where others share your passion. And if you share the load, it helps. It's going to help you, I promise. I know a lot of us are driven by profit and want to do things. And if we write a book, it's all mine, and I want to make all of it myself. And if you care enough and you have enough passion, you'll bring others with you, and do it together, because you need that. You if I was alone in this, I wouldn't have finished. I'll just say that.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to add to that really quick, because I don't know if I've alluded to this with Alaa in our many conversations, but I just want to say, don't feel like it has to be your best friend from OT school or that group that you hung out with. Oh, we're going to do this together. If it is, that's fantastic. I think that's great. But again, Alaa and I have become so close, but in the beginning, we did not know each other. Like, we met via a committee. Like, we didn't know each other when I say didn't know each other, there was no connection. Like, oh, I know you went to school with this. No, nothing.
Yes.
We did not know each other at all. And we're very different. We're very, very different. Like, our own cultures and things are so, like, on paper, we are very different, but I honestly, like, I don't want to get emotional, but like I can't tell you how much I am so happy that I did this with him. Like, he is like my rock. Like, our relationship has gotten so close. Just you meet with somebody for so long, and like you're meeting and you're working together, and one person's like, I don't have it in me today. I can't write this chapter. I did the interview, but it was so heavy. Like, sometimes some of the things people say, it was so heavy, and you're like, I can't write it right now. Like, it's just, I'm thinking about it all day. It's too much. And the other person's like, it's fine. I'm writing my chapter. I'm going to get it. We have all these deadlines, and it's like, don't worry about it. Take your time. At least I got chapter number 5 going right when you can. And then vice versa happens, I can't today. Like, it's too much. Maybe your kid is this or whatever. Don't worry. I'm going to send that email out. I'll get them going. You take your time. Like, it was just both. It was like, one's down, the other one's up. We just kept supporting each other. And like he said, if it was by yourself, I don't think I would have finished either. But because I had him, our work ethics complemented each other.
Yep.
Sounds like a perfect partnership to me. It's almost like you understood, or you got each other, and that only you can get each other in that way, right? You have this common sort of language that's embedded in your brains, and this common idea, and now you're here at the finish line. And I know, Dr. Alaa, you talked about how this was, I forgot the word that you chose, but this was the most accomplished thing that you felt like you've done as an OT. And I guess my question to you is, was it all worth it? Was it all worth it?
You know, I'm going to sound super cliche, but yesterday, my son recognized like my anxiety with not getting my book yet, and like not getting the package in the mail. So he knew it
Checking
was
your
supposed to be
phone
Friday. And he
incessantly.
got like he came home from school and he was like, "Where's your book?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, is it ever gonna come?" You know how 5-year-olds are. And I was like, "Yeah, it's gonna come." So just honestly seeing his sort of like anticipation,
Hmm.
it's definitely worth it, 100%.
Oh,
Oh,
well, I want to congratulate you both again, for number one, finding each other, number two, coming together and making this happen. It sounds like it was quite the process and that it was time consuming and it was emotional and it was, thought provoking, like all of those wonderful things. And
mm,
I'm just congratulate you both for being here to talk about this great accomplishment. I know that you are just going to inspire so many and open eyes, open perspectives, and again, give people a glimpse to stories that I think otherwise they may not have the opportunity to really see for themselves or read for themselves. So I thank you both for your really very important work.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you for the space. I appreciate it.
So if any of our listeners are interested in buying your book, and I'm sure many, many will, how do we find your book? How do we find you? How do we follow you and support your very important work?
Yeah, the publisher, and we should give a shout out to the publisher because they gave a shout out. They gave us a shot, and we appreciate that. And they saw our vision.
Yes.
Jessica Kingsley Publishing in out of London, and you can go to jkp.com and just search for occupational identity, and it pops up. It's available on Amazon, anywhere books are sold. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram is where my main social media platforms are. I don't think there's anybody else that has my name on Instagram, so you can just Google me.
And we're also going to add it to our show notes so people don't get lost and find some other dude.
Yes, so that's where you can find me, and yeah, please, anyone that reads it and wants to learn more about it or has ideas for more things, like I mentioned before, we're literally just scratching the surface with the stories we're looking at. These stories do not encompass all of our experiences, and so ideas are welcome, and we look forward to sort of bringing others along with our journey. So,
Thank you. How about you, Dr. Erica? Any
Well,
last words for our listeners?
yeah, I mean, you can find y'all, I live in the dark ages. I have my only social media I'm on is I guess Facebook, and I'm rarely on that. But if you type in Erica and then V and then a dot, literally, or else you won't find me. Erica V dot and then my last name Herrera, Herrera, then I will pop up. So you can find me there. And then, I mean, I have an email too. You can always email me. It's my name, Erica Herrera at llu.edu. That I respond to all the time. So you can find me doing that there as well. Yeah. And then, like Alaa said, the book is pretty much everywhere. Barnes and
yeah,
Noble, Amazon. Like if you type in occupational identity, just that piece, it should pop up. It is a long title after that, but when you type that part in, it does pop up. But yeah, I'm super excited. I'm just I think the biggest thing I'm excited about is I'm just hoping people experience what Alaa and I have been experiencing for the past couple years. Because just interviewing and writing it, I can't wait to sit down and read it cover to cover myself personally. I've been holding off. Allah said he's been going in the PDF and like rereading and like I've been trying to wait until I get my copy to read it cover to cover, but just sitting down and getting all of this, taking all of what people are saying in, it's been so eye-opening just for me. And I know the content. Like, I know what I'm asking. Like, I know the questions. I have an outline right next to me, but still I'm like, what? Really? Wow. My lens is opening, and my practice has increased just because of some of the stories I've heard, and I'm like, oh, that's a good thing to ask, or wow, I never thought about that. I'm going to start kind of, adding that to my own when I talk to people in my practice. And so I'm just hopeful that people will see it the way that I see it.
I have a strong feeling they will. I, for one, can't wait to get my copy. Like, seriously, I'm going to check the mailbox. I check my UPS tracking app. But again, thank you both for spending the time with us and just sharing your journey, what brought you here. I very much appreciate your time. And again, the super important work that you're doing. Cannot wait to have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Uncommon OT series. Connect with me at www.transitionsot.com. And don't forget to sign up to be part of the Transitions OT community. By doing so, you'll receive my latest compiled list of uncommon OT practice settings, the latest news on mentoring offerings, uncommon OT live events, non-traditional OT resources, and more. You may also follow me on my social media pages on Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you love this episode, head on over to Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, and Google Podcasts to follow, rate, and leave a review. I also ask you to consider pledging your support to my Passion Podcast project by being a patron on Patreon. It is very much appreciated. Sending big OT love. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.